In every era of human history, people feared the storms they could see. But the silence that lies behind the walls of power has always been more dangerous. Today we live in a world of lights, screens, and endless conveniences. Yet something hidden is quietly draining our wealth, shaping our futures, and controlling our financial destinies without permission. This invisible force is what we call the hidden debt machine, a system so deeply woven into our daily lives that we don't even realize how much it takes from us. Our story begins with a simple truth. Debt was never meant to be a trap. In ancient times, it was a straightforward agreement: borrow what you need, pay it back, and rebuild your life. But as civilizations grew, so did the ambitions of kings, empires, governments, and financial institutions. Over centuries, debt transformed from a tool of support into a powerful weapon, one that could reshape societies, direct economies, and quietly drain wealth from millions of people who believed they were making innocent choices. In the modern world, the machine hides behind convenience. Credit cards that promise freedom, loans marketed as opportunity, governments assuring us that national debt is normal. Behind these messages lies a massive engine built on complex interest systems, financial incentives, and institutional dependence. Every swipe, every installment plan, every rising government deficit, each one feeds the machine a little more. And the machine never sleeps. Imagine standing in a neon-lit city at night. Everything looks vibrant, fast, full of life. But underneath the ground, like a giant metallic beast, the hidden debt machine is turning its gears, slow, unstoppable, feeding on small daily actions that seem harmless. A purchase here, a loan there, a delayed payment, a rising inflation rate, a tax adjustment. The system collects everything, converting your time, your labor, your future into fuel. What makes this machine so dangerous is not its size, but its invisibility. It doesn't threaten you like a storm. It doesn't roar like a crisis. It whispers. It hides behind fine print, behind economic jargon, behind official announcements that sound reassuring but conceal the truth. And because it grows quietly, we rarely realize how deeply we're trapped until it's too late. The story of the hidden debt machine is not just about banks or governments. It's about how our entire financial culture was engineered. People are taught to borrow before they learn to earn. They are pushed into lifestyle inflation before understanding savings. They are handed credit cards before financial literacy. The system doesn't just wait for you to make mistakes. It creates the environment where mistakes are guaranteed. But this documentary's opening section is not about fear. It's about revelation. It's about peeling back the layers that have covered the truth for decades. It's about understanding that every financial decision we make exists inside a much larger structure, one designed to take more from us than we receive. Today we expose the machine. Today we uncover the foundation of a global system engineered to extract wealth quietly, efficiently, and endlessly. And once you see the machine, you cannot unsee it. To understand how the hidden debt machine became so powerful, we must travel back through history, because nothing this big was created overnight. Every financial system, every banking evolution, every economic shift added a gear, a pipe, or a new engine to this machine until it grew into the global monster we face today. And like all great traps, it began slowly, quietly, wrapped in the language of progress. Long before modern banks or credit cards, early civilizations discovered something dangerous. Debt could control people more effectively than armies. Ancient rulers would lend grain to farmers, then raise interest so high that the farmers had no choice but to surrender their land, livestock, and even their children. Debt was never just a number, it was power, and those who controlled debt controlled society. Fast forward to the rise of European empires. Kings borrowed money to fight wars, build navies, and expand their territories. When they failed to repay, lenders didn't simply ask for repayment. They demanded influence, land, and political concessions. Entire nations were shaped not by military victory, but by debt negotiations happening in candlelit rooms behind the throne. The machine's early blueprint was forming. Debt creates dependence. Dependence creates control. But the world changed forever in the early 1900s. Banks realized that lending money once wasn't enough. Real profit came from continuous debt, debt that never ended, debt that renewed itself generation after generation. And so they engineered a system that encouraged endless borrowing, installment plans, mortgages, revolving credit, consumer loans, financial products designed to look helpful but actually created long-term reliance. Then came the moment that supercharged the machine, the invention of credit cards. For the first time in human history, people could spend money they didn't have with a simple swipe. And banks celebrated, not because people would repay, but because most people wouldn't. Interest became their biggest income source. The machine's gears began turning faster. Governments soon saw an opportunity of their own. Instead of managing budgets responsibly, they discovered they could borrow endlessly, pushing the consequences onto future generations. Debt ceilings rose, deficits grew, and every time a crisis hit, wars, recessions, pandemics, governments used debt as the solution, unaware that they were feeding a beast that would one day become unstoppable. Corporations entered the game next. They realized that borrowing billions made them look richer on paper. They inflated their value, expanded aggressively, and created the illusion of growth, even when they had nothing to support it but loans stacked on loans. This corporate addiction to borrowing created a second layer of the machine: leverage, speculation, and risk packaged as opportunity. And then came the most dangerous evolution: financial engineering. Wall Street discovered a way to turn debt itself into a commodity, something that could be sold, traded, bundled, and profited from. Mortgage-backed securities, credit swaps, derivatives. These were not created for economic stability. They were created to squeeze more money out of debt than ever before. The machine didn't just grow, it became self-replicating. By the time the 2008 crisis hit, the world saw a glimpse of the monster behind the curtain. Families lost homes, banks collapsed, markets fell apart. But instead of dismantling the machine, the system rebuilt it bigger than ever. More loans, more credit, more government borrowing, more corporate leverage. Rather than stopping the cycle, they accelerated it. And now the consequences are becoming impossible to ignore. Consumers are buried under credit card debt. Governments are drowning in deficits. Corporations are wobbling on unstable financial foundations. Inflation is rising like a slow-burning fire. Currencies are weakening, and the machine keeps taking every single day. The truth is simple but terrifying. The hidden debt machine doesn't care about individuals, families, or nations. It only cares about movement, money flowing, interest generating, borrowing continuing. When you borrow, it grows. When you pay interest, it strengthens. When governments print money, it expands. When corporations refinance loans, it becomes unstoppable. And the most sinister part? The machine doesn't need to force you. It simply shapes the world so that you voluntarily step into its grip. It raises the cost of living so high that borrowing becomes necessary. It creates lifestyles that require monthly payments. It encourages habits that keep you spending. It sells the illusion of wealth while quietly taking the real thing. As the hidden debt machine grows larger and more complex, the world around us is beginning to show unmistakable cracks. What once felt like individual financial struggles now reveal themselves as symptoms of a much deeper, systemic problem. People blame themselves for not earning enough, not saving enough, not managing enough. But the truth is far more disturbing. The system was engineered so that you would always fall behind. The consequences of this machine span across every layer of society. Families who used to rely on a single income now need two, sometimes even three, just to survive. Essentials like housing, healthcare, and education climb higher every year, pushing more people toward loans. Not by choice, but by necessity. The machine thrives when life becomes too expensive to live without debt. Governments face an even greater crisis. As expenses rise and tax revenues fail to keep up, they fall deeper into borrowing. Every year, deficits grow larger. Every decade, national debt doubles. And with each increase, countries surrender a little more of their economic freedom. Nations are no longer controlled by their leaders. They're controlled by the lenders funding their survival. This quiet transfer of power is one of the machine's darkest achievements. Corporations, too, are reaching a breaking point. For years, they've relied on cheap loans to maintain the illusion of strength. They expanded rapidly, inflated stock prices, and took on massive risks. But now, as interest rates rise and consumer spending weakens, these corporations are discovering the grim truth. Growth built on debt is not real growth. It is a bubble waiting for the right moment to explode. And the global economy? It is entering a dangerous new era. Inflation is not just a temporary spike. It's a symptom of a system overheating. Currencies are losing value faster than wages can rise. Savings erode in real time. Every dollar, rupee, or euro buys less than it did yesterday. The machine feeds on inflation because the weaker your currency becomes, the more you depend on borrowing to keep up. Financial experts warn that the next major crisis won't look like 2008. It won't begin with banks collapsing or mortgages defaulting. Instead, it may begin with ordinary people reaching their breaking point, unable to pay rising bills, unable to escape interest traps, unable to maintain the lifestyle the system pushed them into. When households collapse, corporations follow, and when corporations fall, governments face chaos. But amidst this dark horizon, there is still one powerful force the machine fears: awareness. Once you understand how the system works, you start making different decisions. You see traps before stepping into them. You prioritize saving over spending, assets over liabilities, long-term stability over short-term pleasure. You stop feeding the machine blindly. Understanding doesn't magically erase debt, but it changes how you interact with it. You begin building emergency funds so the machine cannot exploit your desperation. You invest strategically so your money grows instead of shrinking. You choose financial freedom over lifestyle illusions. You start controlling your money instead of letting your money control you. The machine cannot be destroyed, but it can be weakened. Not through protests, not through anger, but through millions of individuals becoming financially unexploitable. Imagine a world where people live below their means instead of above them, where governments work within budgets, where corporations grow sustainably instead of recklessly. Imagine a society where debt becomes a tool again, not a trap. This documentary concludes not with fear, but with empowerment. The hidden debt machine has operated for centuries by staying invisible. But tonight, you have seen it clearly. You have walked through its history, its growth, its tactics, and its consequences. And now you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to dependence, just as the machine wants. The other leads to awareness, discipline, and freedom. The future is not written. The collapse is not guaranteed. And your financial destiny is not controlled by fate. The machine is powerful, but knowledge is more powerful. Your decisions are more powerful. Your awareness is more powerful. And the moment you choose to break the cycle, the machine loses one more source of power. This is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of your resistance.